Hello, friends and family. Hope everyone's doing well. Nice, beautiful, sunny day here in Pecos, New Mexico. I came out today. I figured I'd tell you guys a story about something that happened to me in 1987 when I was 15 years old. Um, I was living in East Texas at the time. We'd moved there from a little town called Tyrrell, Texas. We moved there to kind of get away from the hustle and bustle of the big city. My dad didn't really care too much for the big city, so we moved to Golden, Texas. And if anybody's familiar with Golden, Texas, they know that there's a place called Cedar Lake. It's just about a mile and a half from where we were living at, maybe even less than that, maybe about a mile away from where we were living at in Golden. And Cedar Lake is a tributary that kind of split off from the Sabine River. The Sabine River is just a few hundred yards or so from where Cedar Lake is. So when the Sabine River fills up and overruns its banks, it spills into the Cedar Lake, and it looks, if you were to walk up on it, it would look exactly like a river, but it doesn't flow. It's just a little tributary, just trapped water. But anyway, um, this took place. Me and a friend of mine, which was actually one of our neighbors' grandsons. His name was Mark Faber. He would come down. He lived in Dallas, so he would come down and visit his grandparents on occasion throughout the summer. And me and him, we would go fishing and messing around in the woods, just doing boy stuff, kid stuff. So one weekend he was staying with his grandparents, and he came and wanted to go fishing. So we grabbed our fishing stuff and we took my four-wheeler to a spot that's not too far away from Cedar Lake. It was owned by an old man and his wife, and they had a relatively nice sized pond on this land, and he gave me permission to fish on it. So me and Mark, we started fishing, and to understand this a little bit better, the property that this old man had, the pond that he had, um, it butted right up against this barbed wire fence that was separate property. So part of the pond actually extended over into this other piece of property, and not much of the pond, just the swampy back end of the pond. So we were fishing on the better half of the pond. We'd been fishing for maybe 30, 40 minutes or so, and we're just kind of sitting there talking, messing around, not really, paying too much attention to fishing. When all of a sudden, the barbed wire fence that was running through the back half of the pond, it moved really violently, and it shook the water. It got our attention really quickly. And at first, my very first thing was that, well, maybe this is a cow that had, ran through the fence further up, because the pond was positioned in between two hills. One hill ran up in front of us, and one hill kind of ran up behind us. Now, the one in front of us was a much steeper hill, but the one behind us was still pretty steep, but it wasn't, quite as steep. So I figured, well, maybe one of the cows that the neighbors had on the other property ran through the fence and caused the fence to vibrate and shake the water. So I told Mark, let's go check it out. So we got up and walked up the hill. It took us just 20, 30 seconds or so to get to the top of the hill, and we were kind of following the fence line back, and we came to the spot, which was maybe, I'm going to say, 50, 60 yards or so, give or take. Not quite 100 yards, probably 50, 60 yards from where the pond was at. We came across where the fence had been pulled through, and it looked like something had just literally stepped on the fence, or just like pushed the whole fence down. And all of the strand was pushed down, and one of the T-posts was bent out of the way, and it just looked like something had kind of just, ran through it really quickly. So we're like, yeah, it's probably definitely a cow or something, but it just didn't look like how a cow would have run through the fence. I've seen cows run through fences before, and it just didn't look that way. But still in my mind, I was thinking this was probably a cow. So we kind of guessed in a general direction of where, it might have went. So we start walking, towards where we kind of figured it was, and we start walking, and we hear this sound not too far from us. I couldn't really tell at the time what it was, but we were like, what in the world? And we start inching our way up closer, and we're kind of being real quiet because still we're thinking it might be a cow, and we don't want to startle this cow and have it run back at us and trample us or anything, trying to get back to where it just came. So we're kind of, we were being quiet and just walking up, and we're watching and looking, and we noticed there's this thing that's brown, kind of brown, dark brown, almost blackish looking, but it was kind of dark brown. It was by this pine tree, big huge ponderosa pine tree. And at first I was thinking, man, this looks like a bear, because there was some black bear in the area, but it was very, very rare to come across a bear or anything in that part of East Texas. Even though they said they were there, I'd never seen one. So I was thinking, well, maybe it's a bear. So we snuck up, and we got within 20, 30 feet of this, and as soon as we got up that close to it, we realized immediately that it was not a bear, and it wasn't a cow. It was nothing like anything that him or I had ever seen or seen since. It was pulling the bark off of this huge ponderosa pine tree, and we saw it from the back first, and then it turned and looked at us. And the only thing I can say is it looked like all the pictures I've seen of like Gigantopithecus in the face. It looked like prehistoric man. Had a big flaring nostrils, really wide, big dark eyes, and the first thing that hit me, other than the shock of seeing this thing's appearance, was its smell. It smelled exactly like rotted fish. One time I came across a bucket that somebody was skinning catfish in, and it had the catfish parts in the bucket, and it had been sitting out for a few days, and it was very rancid and very gross. This thing smelled almost identical to that. It was just horrid smelling. So you got to keep in mind, this whole interaction, this whole thing happened just within seconds. We stood staring each other off for, maybe 15, 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. It was over very quickly. But in that time, in that situation, everything slowed down. And it was just like, I just got this photographic image of this thing in my mind. And even, 35 years later, I can still photographically remember what this thing looked like in my mind. And it wasn't very tall, like a lot of the stories you hear people saying that they saw Bigfoot and it was 10, 12, 15 foot tall or whatever. This was nowhere near that size. And I have come to learn now over the years, I think there's two different distinct species of Sasquatch. I believe there's the mountain Sasquatch that do get really, really tall. I've never seen one, even though I live in the mountains, so I can't say if they really do get that tall. I have my doubts that they get, more than, 7 or 8 feet tall. I think people, they see these things and they kind of, their imagination gets the better of them, and they, exaggerate, the details greatly. That's the reason I'm only telling exactly what I can remember and what I saw, and, the exact details of this. So anyway, I think there's two distinct species, and I believe the mountain Sasquatch tend to get taller and bigger in body. And what I saw is what they now call the skunk ape. and this lives around Louisiana and Mississippi and all the swampy, more lowland areas. And where I lived in Golden, Texas was only about 100 miles, maybe even less as the crow flies from Louisiana and from the Boggy Creek area. And if people have seen the movie The Boggy Creek Monster and all that, that whole area is not very far from where I was at, so it's probably the same creature. This thing was probably 5'6", 5'7". At the time, I was probably 5 foot tall, and it was not a whole lot taller than me. It definitely was not 6 foot tall, but it did stand bipedal, and it did have very long arms, and it was very sparsely haired. The hair that it had was very matted and kind of growing together, and just very matted and not taken care of. And you could clearly see its skin, underneath its hair, and it was dark skinned. And like I said, it had big flaring nostrils and a big mouth, and more ape-like fingers, from what I could tell. And it stood looking at us as we were looking at it, very shocked as we were shocked. Like I say, we were only 20, 30 feet from this. We were really, really close to it. How we got that close, I don't know. From all the accounts you hear, people are like, once they get 60, 70, 80 yards from it, the thing takes off. So we snuck up on it really well, and we were able to get very close to it and check it out. And I was looking at it, and I kind of looked over to see what Mark's expression was, and I noticed that Mark was not there. He had already split and took off running. And once I realized that, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I just freaked out, and I took off running. And we both met up at the four-wheeler, and he was trying to start the four-wheeler to take off because he was so scared. Thankfully I had the key in my pocket, or he probably would have left me there. Made him, move out of the way, and jumped on the four-wheeler and took off and got home and called my dad. My dad was, he was working at another company at the time, but he was still a sheriff's deputy. He was actually a detective at the time, as well as my uncle. My dad had been a police officer for about 20 years at this time, but he was kind of retiring from it, kind of phasing out and going into other professions and kind of getting out of the police force. But he was still a police officer at the time, here and there, and called him at work, told him what happened, and him and my uncle and this other man came to the house pretty quickly, and I took them back. Mark did not want to go back. He refused to go back to the area. In fact, I want to say that was probably the last time that Mark came to my house and we ever hung out together. I'm not sure if he ever visited his grandparents after that or not, but I did not recall seeing him again after this. But my dad separated me, and my uncle separated him, and we both gave identical accounts as to what happened and what we saw. So they believed that there was some credibility to what we were saying, which I have no reason to lie about this. And I know there's going to be people that flat out don't believe this exists, and and they're going to say that what I was seeing was something else or whatever. And to those people I say, you believe what you want to believe. I'm not trying to convince anybody or change anybody's opinions on anything. I'm just telling you what we saw and what I personally saw and what I witnessed. Take it as that. You can believe me or not believe me. It does not matter to me one bit, because I know what I saw, and I'll know exactly what it is, and that's that. I could really, really care less if anybody believes me or not. But my dad, he knew I wasn't lying. He knew that I saw what I saw. So we went back, and I showed him the area. We found the tree where it was ripping the bark off. And what we later figured out was it was ripping the bark off of the tree because the tree was full of pine beetles, and it was ripping the bark to get at the larvae of the pine beetles, and it was eating pine beetle larvae. So I guess it's one of the things that these creatures eat. So that's what it was doing with ripping the bark off of the tree, and probably why it was so preoccupied it didn't notice that we had walked up on it. So anyway, we found the area. We found, scuffle marks in the ground, and different footprints here and there. Nothing, you think, this is a forest floor. It was heavily, had a lot of pine needles and a lot of different stuff. To make a footprint was really hard in this, top surface of the forest. So, we just found mainly where it had walked off, scuffle marks. It was no, discernible footprints. But we found the fence where it had, come through, and I do believe my dad found, some hair samples, but what happened to that, I'm not 100% sure. This encounter I have also shared with a guy named Vic Cundiff. He has a YouTube channel. It is called Bigfoot Radio, or what's it called? Bigfoot Encounter Radio. And he also does a lot of supernatural encounters, as well as Dog Man and stuff like that. If you look him up on YouTube, it's VIC, Vic Cundiff, CUNDIFF. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but me and him talked for quite a while, and he recorded my encounter and put it on YouTube. And other than that, and this video here is the only time that I've, come publicly out with my encounter. If I had a good forensic artist, I am 100% confident that I could give the exact details where it could be drawn, and shown exactly what it looks like. Although there is another video that came out recently, I want to say in 2015, maybe 2014, of a man that was, and I want to say he was in Louisiana, in the swamp bayou area of Louisiana, and he was filming, and he came across a skunk ape, and it was like catching a fish inside of a log, I think is what it was, that was out in the water. This thing was out in the water. It was splashing around. It was tearing pieces of the logs off and throwing it in the water. And he got pretty close to it, and was able to get a video of it. And that is almost identical, if not the identical one that I saw. I don't think it was the exact one, but it was definitely a skunk ape. It was the exact same type of creature that I saw. It was very, short, like I said, very muscular, heavy built. This thing, it looked fairly, weathered. It was a very rough looking creature. I don't remember seeing its teeth, but I'll never forget its face and its facial expressions. It was just very shocked, and I could tell it was very anxious the second that it noticed that we were there. And as I remember, as I was turning to run to head to Mark, I kind of briefly looked back over my shoulder to make sure it wasn't chasing me, and it was gone. It had, the second that my eyes were off of it, it had bolted like a bullet through the woods. It was out of here. So, that was that. That was, my encounter of a skunk ape or a Sasquatch, whatever, you want to call it. And it was a remarkable encounter. It's something I'll never forget. And I wanted to share it with you guys and see if maybe, stuff like this is what you guys are interested in. I plan on, doing a lot more videos. My subscriber rate's kind of growing, so I figure I'll start doing more videos. Maybe, this channel will turn into something. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Some people say I'm not interesting. I am who I am and what I am, and I'm just a simple country man that lives up in the mountains here in Pecos, New Mexico, and I got a big family, lots of kids, and as you can hear, my chickens crowing in the background. I got a lot of farm going on, and I'm a custom knife maker and blacksmith, and always busy, always doing stuff, and rarely do I have time to make a video. But if this is something of interest, and I'll start doing more videos like this. I have a lot of interesting stories, a lot of interesting things, but I'm very camera shy, if you can't tell, And I don't really do good in front of a camera. I don't know how to act in front of a camera or be natural and normal like a lot of YouTubers, you know. But, you know, I guess that just comes with practice and with doing it. So, you know, maybe I'll get better, maybe I won't. I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to share this encounter. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you do, you know, please consider subscribing and liking this video, and you know, and let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it, and if you've had an encounter like this, I would love to hear about it. And you know, if you know somebody that maybe could draw, you know, from me telling what it looked like, you know, a forensic artist of some sort, you know, I would like to, you know, have this thing drawn up from my memory. But a lot of these videos I'm going to be doing too for my children, so you know they'll have something to look back on and remember, you know, me by. And you know, who knows if it brings enjoyment to all of you guys, maybe, you know, I can grow and turn this channel into something great. But anyway, I'll stop rambling, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and let me know. Thank you.